ಏನಾದರೂ ಬಿಸ್ಲರಿ ಬಾಟಲ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ನನ್ನ ಫೇಸ್ Good morning, my honorable students and honorable viewers. Today, I am so happy to teach you, and it is an opportunity for me to share my thoughts and my views with regard to English grammar. Dear students, it is a very pleasurable thing and a very important, a happy news for us that the classes are going to begin very soon. That is on 23rd of this month. And that is going to be a pleasurable moment for us to meet again physically, eye to eye contact. Right now, after having a long gap, I am just welcoming all to this workbook class, second PU workbook English class. As I already given you some instruction and introduction about English workbook, the most important concepts of this first period during this 2 months period that has been already instructed by the Department of PU, that we have to cover up, we have to complete active and passive voices and direct and indirect speech, along with the other two concepts like pronoun and jumble segments. These are the four important concepts that we have to deal with, we have to discuss. Already our department colleague has already discussed about the jumble segments and pronouns. Probably she might have begun this pronouns also. And those two concepts are very easy, but in spite of it, pronouns has 4 marks. Though it seems to be a very simple concept, very easy for you, but it has got 4 marks. In other words, we call it as the pronouns reference skills anta helತೀವಿ ನಾವು. A reference skills, so anybody can answer that. Even a simple knowledge, sense of common knowledge. I mean, common sense is just enough to write the answers for reference skills. And that will be explained to you by Madam. Even if you have any doubts with regard to reference skills or pronouns or jumble segments, we will discuss those things in short period of time after we meet during the course of offline class. Right now, I don't like to waste my precious time. I begin with, before we begin this, the concept of active and passive voice and reported speech. These two concepts are very important that I would like to handle in few classes. that I would like to teach these two major concepts. So before we begin, before we teach, before we try to understand the active and passive or even reported speech, we try to know the basic and very relevant information with regard to tenses and verbs, or verbs and tenses. If at all you want to understand the active and passive voice or reported speech, which are mainly reliable, mainly relying on these verbs and tenses. ವ್ಯಾಕರಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ವಿಚಾರಗಳು, ವ್ಯಾಕರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ವಿಚಾರಗಳು ಅವಲಂಬನೆ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ವರ್ಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ. ಯಾರು ವರ್ಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತಿರೋ ಅವರುಗಳು ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ, ರಿಪೋರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಸ್ಪೀಚ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, any concept in workbook or grammar part, you can understand very easily. So that the verbs and tenses are, it is almost like the heart of a human body. It is a heart, which is a sole functioning organ. ನಮ್ಮ ಇಡೀ ದೇಹದಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಕಣ್ಣಿದೆ, ಎರಡು ಕೈ ಇದೆ, ಎರಡು ಕಿವಿಗಳಿದೆ, ಈ ತರ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಕಣ್ಣು ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಬದುಕ್ಬೋದು, ಒಂದು ಕಿವಿ ಇಲ್ದಿರು ಬದುಕ್ಬೋದು, ಒಂದು ಕೈ ಇಲ್ದಿರು ಬದುಕ್ಬೋದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಒಂದೇ. ಸೊ ಆ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೋ, ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಸೋಲ್ ಆರ್ಗನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೆಯೋ, ಅದೇ ತರ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಈ ವರ್ಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಡಿಟೈಲ್ ಆಗಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. Probably some of our colleagues, our department teachers would have discussed these verbs and tenses in first year course, pre-university course, first PUC ಹೇಳಿರ್ಬೋದು. Even I taught my students, 1 year students and the other section students, with regard to verbs and tenses. The other students might not have realized the basic information with regard to verbs and tenses. So let me start with the tense. If I question you the first question, what do you mean by tense? Since we are in our online class, you cannot answer my question. And I cannot pose any question. If at all I question myself, that is only for myself. So simply, I would like to continue framing so many questions with regard to verbs and tenses. Better you must try to have these questionnaire in your mind and try to make a point wherever you need to ask something with regard to verbs and tenses. And before you try to understand, before you try to learn, you must have a notebook, please. Whatever I explain, whatever I stress upon, whatever I make it a point and write it on board must be written on in the notebook. And when you come to the class, there you can ask me any doubt if you have while listening to the class. So I keep on handling your classes continuously. In the next week also, I engage continuous classes in place of SJ madam and in place of Shakila madam also. Since I have to complete this two concepts as early as possible, I engage more number of classes continuously. Better you must try to have a separate 100-page unruled notebook along with your workbook notebook. ಆ ವರ್ಕ್ಬುಕ್ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ನೋಟ್ಬುಕ್ ಸಹ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದನ್ನ ಸಿನ್ಸಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಬಹಳ ಅಟೆಂಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿ. So that you can understand better, ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ ಹೇಗಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಎ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ಸ್. 4+4 ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ 8 ಅಂತಲೇ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ನಾವು. 4x4 ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ 16 ಅಂತಲೇ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು. In the same manner, the grammar will help you and you have to learn and understand. It is not a theoretical aspect. It is a practical aspect of language. Theoretical ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ you go on listening to the class, you go on reading We go on listening and hearing the classes, and we go on explaining things. Now ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋದು, so that while listening you imagine things, you understand something, you feel, you find some emotions while listening. You will have a vast memory, you will have a vast space to imagine your ideas. ಹೀಗೆ ಪಾಠಗಳನ್ನ ಪದ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಕೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಕಲ್ಪನಾ ಲೋಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನ ಗ್ರಹಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ we feel in our own way. We try to understand the concepts in our own imagination, in our own assumption. ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಆದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಆದ ಭಾವನೆಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ. That is what we say theory. Whereas practical learning is, it is something almost like mathematics. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಗೆ ಆ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರಿತೀವಿ ಮತ್ತು ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋದಾಗ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಇಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಗ್ರಾಮರ್, ದ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಅಪ್ಲೈಡ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಲರ್ನ್. ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಂಡ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ, ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಆ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ that will be solved. The question will be solved. ಉತ್ತರ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. So these are the things that you have to keep it in mind. So now I begin with that verbs and tenses. That is the concept of today's class. I hope that you will definitely understood that whatever I have told you right now, and be sincere and honest in listening the class, please. Don't divert your attention and mind here and there, and don't stand up, don't go outside, don't come inside. Don't simply trap your mind, distract your mind. Don't disturb yourself until the class finishes. Class ಮುಗಿಯೋವರೆಗೂ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬ್ ಆಗಬೇಡಿ. That is the way you have to respect a teacher. That is a way of respecting teaching and the teacher. ನನಗೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವಿಚಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಗೌರವ ಸಿಗಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ನೀವು ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಮರ್ಯಾದೆ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳೋದನ್ನ ಸಿನ್ಸಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಅದನ್ನ ಹಾನೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ತಗೊಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. So having discussed all these things, I begin with the tenses and verbs. So tenses and verbs, I discussed the same information in first year 1N section, in 1N and in 1A1. And the students, if at all you have understood little bit about the tenses and verbs, please again try to listen to me and again try to recall that whatever we discussed in your previous classes, and again try to write down. If at all I write some important, again some additional points, you write it down and just follow. And after completing this basic information with regard to verbs and tenses, then I will move on to active and passive voice and reported speech. Well, thank you. The first thing is tense. What do you mean by tense? Tense, it is an English expression. This has been taken from the Latin expression tempus. This has been taken from the Latin expression tempus. T-E-M-P-U-S. Tempus. ಈ ಟೆಂಪಸ್ ಇಂದ ಲ್ಯಾಟಿನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವರ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. We have selected and it has been derived. The meaning of this word tense. The tense, it is an English expression that has been derived from the tempus, which means ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಟೆಂಪಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ that means time. Time. So that tense, time and tempus, that gives the same meaning. Tense is an English expression which has been taken from the Latin expression that is tempus, which means time. ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ ಟೆಂಪಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರು ಅದನ್ನೇ, ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರು ಅದನ್ನೇ, ಸಮಯ. Then what do you mean by time then? Or what do you mean by tempus? I mean tense then. ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ there is a definition for a word tense. Tense is An expression. Tense is an expression. It is an expression of time. Tense is an expression of time. How do you express your time? Through verb. V-E-R-B verb. That is the definition. If I recall this idea in Kannada, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಬಿನ ಮೂಲಕ ವೇಳೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಳುವುದನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳುವುದು, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸುವುದು. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಮೂಲಕ, ಥ್ರೂ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಮೂಲಕ, ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಮೂಲಕ ವೇಳೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಳುವುದನ್ನ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸುವುದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಟೈಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Many of you might have not realized the meaning of the word tense. Tense andre, many of our students have answered me that tense means time. Of course. What do you mean by time then? It is an expression of tense. Tense andre time anta. Time andre artha ಏನು ಆಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ an expression of tense. ಕಾಲವನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ವೇಳೆಯನ್ನ ಗೊತ್ತು ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಹೌ ಡು ಯು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಟೈಮ್? ಥ್ರೂ ದ ವರ್ಬ್. ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಮೂಲಕ. ವಿತೌಟ್ ದ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ವರ್ಬ್ ವಿ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಓನ್ಲಿ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ವರ್ಬ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ವರ್ಬ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಡ್ ದಟ್ ಡಿಟರ್ಮೈನ್ಸ್ ದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹೌ ಡು ಯು ಡಿಸೈಡ್? With the help of a verb. Verb. So tense will be decided by or determined by verb. Then what is the faculty of verb then? I'll tell you after discussing the verbs about the forms of tenses and types of tenses. ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. Now, which is the determiner of verb tense? ಕಾಲವನ್ನು ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸತಕ್ಕಂತ ಒಂದು ಮೀಡಿಯೇಟರ್ ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಬ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಮೀಡಿಯೇಟರ್ ಆರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಮೈನ್ ಡಿಟರ್ಮೈನರ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಇದನ್ನು ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸತಕ್ಕಂಥ, ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಬ್. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ವರ್ಬು, when you consider that the verb is the main agent or the determiner of tense, so that we need to understand, we need to realize the main family of verb. ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಸಮೂಹ, ಅದರ ಸಂಸಾರ ಹೇಗಿದೆ, ಎಂತೆಂಥ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದಗಳಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಮೈನ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಶೋಸ್ ದ ಆಕ್ಷನ್. ವಾಕ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದಗಳು ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಡ್. ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಟೆಲ್ ಯು the meaning of the sentence, the complete meaning of the sentence. ಆ ಅರ್ಥದಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಕ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಅರ್ಥ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. That is what we say verb. That you know that in out of parts of speech there is a definition for verb. Verb is a word in a very important word in a sentence which shows action. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ how many types of verbs are there? How many types of verbs are there? There are two major types of verbs are there. One is main verb and the second one is auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verb. These are the two types of verbs. Under main verb, you can divide this main verb into two types. One is transitive verb, the other one is intransitive verb. transitive verb, and the other one is intransitive. Transitive, intransitive verb. Verb will be mainly classified into two groups. The first group is main verb, ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದ ಇದು. ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ, ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಫೈನೈಟ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ ವರ್ಬ್, ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಇನ್ ಅದರ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ helping verb. Under main verb, we can classify this into two types. One is transitive verb anta heltivi. The other one is intransitive verb. Again, when you come to this auxiliary verb, how many types of auxiliaries are there? Majorly, auxiliaries are two types. ಎರಡು ವಿಧಗಳು auxiliaries. So one is primary auxiliary. The first one is, and the second one is model auxiliary. You know what do you mean by primary auxiliary? Primary auxiliary is an auxiliary which comes before the verb in order to help the verb in the beginning of the sentence. ವಾಕ್ಯದ ಮೊದಲು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಮೊದಲು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಮೂಲವಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಪ್ರಾಥಮಿಕವಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಪ್ರಥಮ. ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊದಲು ಬರುತ್ತೆ? ಪ್ರಥಮವಾಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಮೈನ್ ವರ್ಬಿಗೆ ಮೊದಲು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. That is why it is called as primary auxiliary. And then model auxiliary, the other one. I will tell you afterwards, after discussing the primary auxiliaries, the meaning of model auxiliary. Let us not confuse ourselves. I have given you the concept of tense, which has been taken from the tempus, the Latin expression which means time. Under that, only through the verb we can decide the tense. So that there is a definition for tense. Tense is an expression of time through the verb. ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಮೂಲಕ ಕಾಲವನ್ನ ವೇಳೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ಕಾಲ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಟೈಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವೇಳೆ, ಆ ವೇಳೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ಕಾಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಸೊ ಕಾಲವನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಯಾವುದು? ವಿಚ್ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್? You can answer me. Verb decides the tense. Which is the determiner of tense? Verb is the determiner of tense. Which is the agent of tense? Verb is the agent of tense. So ಹೀಗೆಲ್ಲ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ನೀವು ಕೊಡಬಹುದು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅನ್ನು ನೀವು, when you consider that the verb is the main agent or the determiner, the decision maker of the tense, so that we need to know the family of verb, the branches of verb, types of verbs. ಇಂತಿಂತ ವರ್ಬ್ಗಳಿದೆ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಆ ವರ್ಬ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ವಿಧ, ಒಂದು ಮೈನ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ, ಎರಡಿದು ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ. ಆ ಮೈನ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಗೈನ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಡಿವೈಡ್ ದಟ್ ಮೈನ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಇಂಟು ಟೂ ಟೈಪ್ಸ್, transitive, intransitive. Again, if you divide the auxiliary into two types, primary auxiliary, model auxiliary. And you got to know the meaning of primary auxiliary. That is, which comes before the verb, the main verb. Main verb in a modulu bartakantaddu primary auxiliary. And even model auxiliary also, it comes before the main verb. But it has got some specific meaning. Model anta helidre, it has got some specific meaning that I will tell you right now. Model auxiliary means mood of the main verb. What do you mean by model then? Model means mood. Mood anta ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಮೂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಮೂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಉದ್ದೇಶ, ಅದರ ದೃಷ್ಟಿ, ಅದರ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್. ಯಾವುದರ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್? ದ ಮೂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಮೈನ್. So model means it is the meaning. The meaning of the model auxiliary is mood ante. Model auxiliary which comes behind the main verb, which helps the main verb to express its mood. By expressing the mood of the main verb, that verb has been declared as, it has got its name as model. ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಉದ್ದೇಶವನ್ನ ಹೇಳುವ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಯಾವುದರ ಮೂಡ್ ಅದು? ಮೂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಮೇನ್ ವರ್ಬ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಸೇ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ. Then how many types of primary auxiliaries? ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ? So primary auxiliaries, that will be mainly classified into three types. ಮೂರು ವಿಧಗಳು. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರೀಸ್ ಮೂರು ವಿಧಗಳು. ಒಂದು ಬಿ ಫಾರ್ಮ್, ಎರಡನೇದು ಡೂ ಫಾರ್ಮ್, ಥರ್ಡ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್. These are primary auxiliaries. Model auxiliary, again that will be classified into two types. ಒಂದು tense model. Tense model. And the other one is, the second one is tenseless model. Tenseless model. This is the second type of model auxiliary. Under tense model, idralli, again you can divide this tense model into two groups. One, present tense and past tense. You know, there are only two tenses in a language. ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡೇ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್, ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. Why do the grammarians they declare that there are only two tenses in a language? ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡೇ ಕಾಲ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ವ್ಯಾಕರಣಕಾರರು ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ forms of verbs, they have got independent tense forms. They need not depend on the other verbs to form their tenses. The other verbs are not at all required to form the tenses for present or past. If at all you want to form the tense for future, you require an additional verb. So future tense is not an independent tense. I hope that you have got my point. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಎರಡೇ, ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ದಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ವೆನ್ ಐ ಕಮ್ ಟು ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್. ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಇಫ್ ಐ ಗೋ ದೇರ್ ಟು ದಿ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್, ದಟ್ ಅಗೈನ್ ದಟ್ ಟೇಕ್ಸ್ ಎ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟೆಡ್. ಸೊ ರೈಟ್ ನೌ just to have that idea that there are only two tenses in a language. ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಭಾಷೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೇನೆ, ಕನ್ನಡ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹಿಂದಿ, ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಯಾವುದೇನಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಅವರ್ ಥಾಟ್ಸ್. ಹೌದಾ? ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಥಾಟ್. ನಮ್ಮ ಯೋಚನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಾಧನ ಅದು, ಒಂದು ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ ಅದು. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವೈ in a language there are only two tenses, that is present and past. To say why there are only two tenses, because they are independent tense forms. If I say write, W-R-I-T, write, that is in present tense. If you change that word into another form, V2 form, verb 2 form, that is wrote, which does not require any other verb to form its tense. Write is an individual verb, is a single verb which expresses tense of its own. Which tense? Present tense. The other form of the verb write is wrote, which expresses its own tense, that is wrote. that is a past tense having not required another additional verb, without having the help of another verb. So ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಸ್ವತಃ ಅವುಗಳೇ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದು ನಿಜವಾದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. If at all you want to form the future, if I just write the example here, write is present tense. The other form of the word is write is wrote, past tense. The other form of this is of the word write is wrote is written according to grammarians. The next form, write, wrote, written, which does not have a tense. This is in present tense, this is in past tense, whereas this written does not have a tense. That is the reason why this has been called as past participle. It's a participle form of the verb write. Which one? Written, without having a tense. ಕಾಲವೇ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಒಂದು ರೂಪ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅದು. ಯಾವುದು? ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇಫ್ ಅಟ್ ಆಲ್ ವಿ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಎ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್, ಈ ರೈಟ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದಿಗೆ we express modal auxiliary. That is what we say, will write. So future is not an independent tense form. ಅದು ಸ್ವಾವಲಂಬಿ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕಾಲ ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದದ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇರಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಕಾಲನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ವಾವಲಂಬಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವತಃ ಸ್ವಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕಾಲ ಅಲ್ಲ. It is depending on, the future is mainly depending on an additional verb. That is what we say, modal auxiliary. That is why modals are used, mainly used to express future, in addition to the mood of the main verb. What do we say? What do we find? We find the sense of mood in future through this auxiliary of modal. Modal auxiliary ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಾವು ಭವಿಷ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಉದ್ದೇಶವನ್ನು ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. So mainly the modal auxiliaries are used not only to express the mood of the main verb, but mainly to form future tense. ಭವಿಷ್ಯತ್ ಕಾಲವನ್ನು ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಲ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಭವಿಷ್ಯತ್ ಕಾಲ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಕಾಲ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಸ್ವಂತದ ಅದು ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್, ಅದೇ ಸ್ವತಃ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕಾಲ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಬೇರೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವರ್ಬನ್ನ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಾವಲಂಬಿಯಾಗಿ ಸ್ವತಃ ಸ್ವಂತ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕಾಲಗಳು ಯಾವ್ದಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೈ grammarians have declared and accepted that there are only two tenses in a language. In addition to this idea, I also again give you the additional meaning of the word tenses. Means tense is not only an expression of time, but also an expression of tense is not only an expression of time through verb, but it is an experienced action. But it is an experienced action. ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲಸ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೋ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅನುಭವ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಯಾವ ಕೆಲಸ ನಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಾಲ ಅಂತ ಒಪ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ನಾವ್, ವೆರಸ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಲಿಸನಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಮೀ. ನೀವು ಪಾಠ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ, ನಾನು ಹೇಳೋದನ್ನ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಪಾಠ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಈ ಅನುಭವ ನನಗೂ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ನಿಮಗೂ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾವ ಕೆಲಸ ನಾನು ಟೀಚ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ನೀವು ಪಾಠ ಕೇಳೋದು, ಯಾವ ಕೆಲಸ ನಮ್ಮಗಳ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಕಾಲ ಅಂತ ಒಪ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ನಾವು. Dear students, have you got my point? ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲಸ, suppose if at all I am eating something, that is an experience. If you drink water or a juice or something else, that is an experience. If you sit there, that is an experience. If you go outside, if you run, it is an experience. If you talk loudly, it is an experience. If you cry, it is an experience. So whatever the experience that the action denotes, yava kelasa, namma anubhava, the action, the experience of an action that comes only to a man, not to anything, not to anybody. ನಮಗೆ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ಕೆಲಸ ನಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಾಲ ಅಂತ ಒಪ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನು ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದು ಯಾವುದದು? ಐದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಕುಡ್ ಬಿ ಅ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ರೈಟ್ ನೌ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕಾಲ್ ದಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಇದು ವರ್ತಮಾನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಐ ಟೀಚ್ ಯು ಅಥವಾ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಯು ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಲಿಸನಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಮೀ, ಹಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಮೀ, ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್. I taught you in the beginning about the synopsis of grammar, the main contents of grammar in the first class. So that experience had come to me already. I already experienced that one. Nange ಅನುಭವ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೂ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಅವತ್ತೆಲ್ಲ ಪಾಠ ಕೇಳಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. I taught you about, I introduced about the importance of language. Many things I taught you in the last class, and that experience has come to you already. And now you are getting an experience of what you are listening and sharing our views. Whereas we may not be experienced in future that whatever is to be done. ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದ್ರು ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ಬರದೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. In the next class I will talk about the active and passive voice or tenses ಅಂತ if I tell you, ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ that is only an uncertain action, uncertain decision ಆಯ್ತು. So the action which is mainly relying on the uncertain decision, or any kind of action which is mainly standing on the uncertain decision, that is going to be a future. That is going to be a future. That is what we say, an inexperienced action. ನಾವು ಮುಂದೆ ಏನ್ ಪಾಠ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನೀವೇನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಿರೋ ಬಿಡ್ತಿರೋ ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮುಂದೆ ನಡೀತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಈಗ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದಿ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಡನ್ ಇನ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್, ದಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಕಮ್ ಟು ಅಸ್. ನಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಮುಂದೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಎಲ್ಲಿದೆ? ನಮ್ಮ ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಆಲ್ ದಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಮೆಮೊರಿ, ದಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಈಸ್ ಡನ್ ಇನ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಆರ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಡನ್ ಇನ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೈ future is uncertain. Future is not sure. That is why that there is no tense in future. Got it? Got my point? Don't confuse yourself. There is a future. Time reference is there. Time reference. I can say tomorrow I meet you at 9 o'clock. Tomorrow we'll go to Bangalore. Tomorrow we will meet in a party. So we just give the time to the future action. ಮುಂದೆ ನಡೆಸತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ವೇಳೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. So that is why there is only a time reference in future. Future is incomplete. What do you mean by future? An incomplete action, an inexperienced action. ಯಾವುದು ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಇನ್ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅನುಭವವನ್ನು ನಾವು ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಆ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ಗೆ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಟ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕಿಂಗ್, ಇಫ್ ಅಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ಎ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಎ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್, ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಡಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಇಫ್ ಅಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ಎ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಎ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್, ಯು ಮಸ್ಟ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ ದಿಸ್ modal auxiliary. If at all you want to express future tense at the time of speaking, you require modal auxiliary. That is what we say, future tense. So there are only two tenses in the language, present and past tense. So what do you mean? What are the present tense modal auxiliaries? Will, would is past tense. Shall, should, past tense modal auxiliary. Can, could, I write it here. May, might, M-I-G-H-T, might. The last auxiliary is may and might. These are all tense modal auxiliaries. You know, tenseless modal auxiliaries which do not have the tenses like present and past. These auxiliaries do not have tenses like past and present tense. ಇವುಗಳು ಇದ್ದ ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರೀಸ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಹಾಗೆ ಯಾವುದದು ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ಲೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ. need to tenseless model auxiliary. And dare, T-A-R-E, dare to is a tenseless model auxiliary. And then used, U-S-E-D, used to, tenseless model auxiliary. Must, need to, dare to, used to. And the other one is ought to, O-U-G-H-T-T-O, ought to. And the last one is required, R-E-Q-U-I-R-E-D, required to. So these are all the tenseless modal auxiliaries which do not have particular tenses like present and past tense, like will, shall, will, would, shall, should, can, could ಇದ್ದಾಗೆ ಇವಳಿಗೆ past tense ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲ. Tenseless model references ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. What do they do? These tenseless modal auxiliaries, they do not express future. They express only mood of the main verb. Whereas these modal auxiliaries, they express future. ಇವುಗಳು ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಹೇಳ್ತವೆ. That is why they are called as tense models. ಇಲ್ಲಿ tense ಇದೆ. Whereas will is present tense, would is past tense. So will being a present tense modal auxiliary that expresses the future in the present time. So here is a question about this. If I would like to ask you a question, why do these present tense modal auxiliaries are called as present tense verbs in spite of having the express future, though they express future? We use these modal auxiliaries to express future only, but they are called as present tense modal auxiliaries. Whereas these would, should, could, might, these are all past tense modal auxiliaries. They express future in the past time, in the past tense. Past time nalli future na ಹೇಳ್ತವೆ. Future ಅಂದ್ರೆ incomplete ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, incomplete action ಅಥವಾ incomplete work ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. That is what we say future. That is why they are called as present tense and past tense. Whereas these auxiliaries are tenseless modal auxiliaries. They indicate only mood of the main verb, not future. ಭವಿಷ್ಯ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಹೇಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ನ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಮೂಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತವೆ. That is why they are called as tenseless modal auxiliaries. So these are all the main verbs, the verbs which are related to verb group. And coming back to this primary auxiliary, I write it here, primary auxiliary, the forms of be, forms of do, and forms of have, that you all know that is very important as far as active and passive voice is concerned and reported speech is concerned, because all these expressions are mainly depending on verbs. So if I write it here. So whatever I write it here on the board, that must be recorded in your notebook. Not even a single word is missed. See that everything has to be written, and practice it as and when you find time, so that it helps a lot to recall your ideas and to write it well in the examination. Now, the forms of be. So that must be written in this column, in this type of tabular column. It should be written and practiced like this. If I question you what are the forms of be, many of our students do not answer this. the forms of be, in spite of having known that there are some forms of be. ಅದು ಹೀಗೆ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So this has to be written on the basis of these two conditions. One is number, singular and plural form. Plural form. This is number. Number. Here you can find the tens. Tens. There are two types of tenses, as you know that. Present and past tense. On the basis of these two conditions, tense and number, ಈ ಎರಡು ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಬಿ ನ ಬರೀತೀವಿ ನಾವು. So B is the title given to the forms of B. B is the title given to the forms of B. ಆ ಫಾರಂಗಳಿಗೆ ಆ ರೂಪಗಳಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಬಿರುದು ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಬಿ ಅಂತ, ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರೀಸ್. ಮೊದಲನೇದು the first form of B is am. That should be used only with the first person I. That should also be kept in your mind. Am is the first form of B, which is a singular in number and in present tense only. That should be written only in the first person I. I am. You bar second person barla, third person barodilla. The second form of B is. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಗಮನ ಇಟ್ಟು ನೋಡಿ. ಈ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಪ್ಪನಾಗಿ ಬರೀಬೇಕನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಈ, which is the second form of B, that is in present tense singular. So present and singular forms of B are the B forms are the is, am and is. And the next plural form is, third form is are. Are is present tense plural B form, whereas past tense for am and is, was is past tense singular, whereas were is past tense plural form. This is the form of B, the primary auxiliary. The first one. First one. The second one. Forms of do. That has to be written in the same manner. Same manner. Do, singular and plural form. Present tense and past tense. So the do forms are present tense singular is does, and present plural form is do. Present tense singular is does. Present tense plural form is do. Past tense singular did. Past tense plural form is also did. These are all the forms of do. And the forms of have, I write it here. Present tense and past tense. Singular, plural form, plural. So present tense singular have form is, has. Present tense plural, present tense singular have form is has, and present tense plural form of have is have. And the past tense singular form is had, whereas past tense plural form, singular is had, plural form is also had. So present tense singular has, present tense plural form is have, past tense singular is had, and plural is also had. These are all the forms of have. What do these do? These auxiliaries, primary auxiliaries. The main function of the primary auxiliary is to form the tense along with the meaning to your verb. ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೇನ್ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರೀಸ್ ನ ಮೊದಲು ಬಳಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಓನ್ಲಿ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ದ ಟೆನ್ಸ್. Along with that forming tense, it also forms meaning. ಅರ್ಥ ಮತ್ತು ಕಾಲವನ್ನ ಮೇನ್ ಕಾಲವನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಮತ್ತು ಅರ್ಥ ಕೊಡುವಂಥ. Only for these two intentions we use primary auxiliaries before the main verb. That is why they are called as primary, prathama, prathamika, sahayaka kriyapadagalu. Primary auxiliaries, helping verbs. Prathamavagi heltakantadu. So please keep it in mind. The basic information which helps you in your life, wherever you go and speak, and as and when you want to express your ideas through language, these basic informations will correct your mistakes, your faults and disturbances while expressing your thoughts through your language, by means of language. ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನ ಶುದ್ಧಿ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಶಕ್ತಿ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕಿದೆ? ಈ ವ್ಯಾಕರಣಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಾವು ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ತಪ್ಪು ಬರೆಸೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಪರ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಆದಷ್ಟು ಪರ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. So that is why these things are very, very, very important here. So after discussing the major group of auxiliary verbs, and we will come back to this transitive and intransitive one. And before we try to understand this transitive, intransitive verb, let us try to know the meaning of auxiliary verb. Very important. So today's discussionally, we have understood something about the family of verbs. Main verb, auxiliary verb, transitive, intransitive, primary, modal auxiliary. Under primary, be form, do form, have form, that we have written here. Under modal auxiliary, tense modal auxiliaries, tenseless modal auxiliaries, and those are the things. We have just got the familiarity of verbs, different types of verbs. ಇಂತಿಂತ ವರ್ಬ್ಗಳಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ನಮಗೆ ಪರಿಚಯ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. In addition to this, we have understood about the meaning of modal auxiliary. Modal auxiliary, which expresses the mood of the main verb. An expression of mood is called modal. An expression of mood of the main verb is called modal. That is also discussed. And after that, it should not be forgotten to understand the idea of auxiliary. What do you mean by auxiliary then? So many of you will answer me, auxiliary means helping verb, sir. Helping verb. Sahayaka kriyapada. ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಬ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಸಹಾಯಕ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? I question you. I question my teacher. ಹೀಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದೆ ನಾನು. ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ? And that the students will never look into it. If they get to know, if they understand some skeleton part of information, they feel that it is important, that is enough for them. But you must go in deep to understand the idea here. What is auxiliary? Auxiliary is nothing but helping verb. I agree with that. But what do you mean by helping verb? You put a question on that. What do you mean by helping verb? ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಸಹಾಯಕ ಕ್ರಿಯಾಪದ ಎಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಯಾವ ವರ್ಬ್ ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? Which verb helps here? Whom does it help? Why does it help? If at all we want to understand the meaning of auxiliary, we must frame 3 questions here. 3 ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದು ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಫಸ್ಟ್, what is auxiliary? What is auxiliary? And where do we use auxiliary? Why do we use auxiliary? These are all the main questions to be framed to understand the meaning of auxiliary. What is auxiliary? Where do we use? And why do we use? So I hope you have captured, you have realized and understood that whatever we have discussed today's class. I want to continue the same concept of auxiliary, the meaning of auxiliary. That will take another sphere of time. Minimum, it requires half an hour to complete the meaning of auxiliary, because you need to know the different forms of verbs there. How many forms of verbs are there? That you do not know. Many of you do not know that there are 6 forms of verbs are there. If at all you want to understand the meaning of auxiliary, we have framed 3 questions here. What is auxiliary? Where and where? Why do we use auxiliary? Elli ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ, ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. To get the meaning for these 3 questions, again we will move on to the forms of verbs. Forms of verbs ತಗೋಬೇಕು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. So that will take another minimum half an hour time, so that it may be incompleted, and the time is already up. We are at the verge of finishing our class. I hope that it is enough for today's class. And this picture, the clarity of this, that whatever I have written here on board, it should be printed in your brain. So whenever I ask you about the classifications of verbs, the types of verbs or the family of verbs, everyone should be in a position to answer these things. So that if you practice this, that will help you to attend the other concepts of workbook. In addition to this, the topic, I also request you, the faculty of students, that there is an instruction from the principal, by the principal, that some students not at all even admitted, they have not yet to be admitted, and many students have not at all enrolled and admitted to the class. They have not paid the government fees. I request all of you on behalf of the principal and the management that as early as possible, because 13th is the last day, when once the date is finished, you will have to pay penalty for the regular fees, the government fees, because all the informations along with the attendance, along with the admissions, everything has to be submitted to the board, the pre-university board, within that particular time. If you do not pay the time in time, of course they will collect the penalty, but they will have to walk through and fro always to Bangalore to Tumkur. And once the final day comes, so again you will have to go to board, having no risk from the management. Management risk ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ, principal risk ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರವಾಗಿ it's an humble request for you. You have to pay the fees now. So 13th ಒಳಗೆ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು, those who are not enrolled and admitted here must come and pay the fees here. Government fees ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು, so that you will have an option for, you will get a chance for attending laboratory also. Yakendre that coming 23rd will be an opening day for the college and schools here. That has been declared by the government. Open ಶುರುವಾಗಿದೆ, ಅನೌನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 23 ಶುರು ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಕೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದೇ ಏನನ್ನ, ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಅಡ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀರಿ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬನ್ನಿ, ಅಡ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬನ್ನಿ ಅಂತ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ಅವಾಗ ನೀವು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಎದ್ದು ಬರೋದು ಸರಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗನೆ, either today or tomorrow, coming on Monday. So better you come and join and enroll your name, take an admission, paying the consent fees. ಇದೊಂದು ಮಾಡಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೋಟ್ ಬುಕ್ ಅನ್ನು ಇಡಿ, ವಿತ್ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡ್ ಟು ವರ್ಕ್ ಬುಕ್ ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. that we do not know what happens in future. The government will take, the steps will be which will be taken by the government. This time, they have not at all conducted the examination. Simply, they have given the pass on the basis of the SLC marks and PU marks. Of course, if this pandemic disease, if this deadly disease comes down, if it disappears from this globe, suppose in ಮುಂದಿನ ಮಾರ್ಚ್ ಏಪ್ರಿಲ್ ಮೇ ನೊಳಗೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಇದು ಡಿಸಪಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದಾಗ they will definitely conduct the examination, board examination conduct ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. At that moment, you have to face the examination. So there, from here onwards, you should not be careless. You should be very punctual and honest in getting the information and practicing it, learning things better. ಮುಂದೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಯಾರು ಹೇಳಕ್ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೋ, ಬಟ್ ನೀವು see that you must be ready to face the consequences. ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನು ಬರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಬರೆದ್ರೂ ಸಂತೋಷ, ಬರೆದೇ ಹೋದ್ರು ಸಂತೋಷ. ಅದು ಒಂದು. In addition to this examination point of view, these things will help you to shape your life. That will help you for your communication skills. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ಹೋದಾಗ ಇಂಟರ್ವ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಮಾತನಾಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಬರದೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟರೆ ಅವಾಗೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, that will be a minus point on our part to go out from the competition. ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಹೊರಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ whatever we discuss right now in the first and second year, which is very, very, very vital importance, that will fetch you more in your life and helps a lot to continue your life with your career. So thank you for your patience listening. I hope that you have all written these things, and please get a record of these things and listen as and when you find the time. So thank you very much. So in coming classes ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನೇ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀನಿ, ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿ ಸುಮಾರು 4-5 ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. There I will discuss after discussing tense. ಇನ್ನು ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಆಕ್ಸಿಲರಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಹೇಳಿದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಸಿಕ್, ಇದು ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು. Without having these touch, you cannot understand passive and active and reported speech. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. So don't miss this workbook class till the offline class begins. So when we come to the offline, there we discuss it very clearly and openly. That is eye to eye contact with it, discuss it. Thank you very much.